Welcome to the podcast, Noise Violation Podcast. Today we have a special guest. She's an internationally recognized relationship expert and best-selling author. She's written Allowing Magnificence, Older Women, Younger Men, and another one called The Breakup Triage. Can't wait to hear more about that. Specializing in higher thinking for an evolving world, she's a writer, a speaker, and coaches on cutting-edge partnership models as well as traditional relationship challenges from a platform that fosters self-esteem and personal empowerment. So everybody welcome Susan Winter to the podcast. Thank you, Susan, for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So kind of tell everyone about yourself. Like what do you do as a relationship expert? And I guess how did you become a relationship expert? Where are you from?
Well, I was born in LA, grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, went to school in Indiana University, fantastic music school. I studied opera and classical theater.
Oh, wow.
And then came to New York after college to pursue that career. But I've had a long and winding road in communications. Everything from corporate communications, financial news on camera with what is now CNBC, to public speaking and the arena that I'm in now. But, you know, I was interested in psychology, wanted to take that kind of a coursework, but the opera training was so intensive there. I mean, listen, Indiana University, if you don't know about it, you think, oh, some little podunk school where she went and took a little class in music, music appreciation, but it is the hallmark of the most intense opera training program and musical program. Our symphony hall and our opera hall, when I came to the Met, I was like, there are 5 orchestras. You've got the top people in the world. Why they put it in Indianapolis? But, you know, I was so busy in college that I didn't have time to pursue these other things that I wanted to pursue. But we didn't have my category. We need it.
Do they have it now?
Well, I mean, now you have the category of relationship expert. What I'm saying is I never saw myself heading in this arena.
Right. So when was the point that you transferred from opera to relationships?
I wrote a book that came out, it published in 2000, and that's traditional publishing. As a one-off, I had something I wanted to say. I didn't call myself a coach. The chyron underneath my name in the Today Show said relationship expert, and the book Older Women, Younger Men.
Right.
I had a partner who was 20 some years younger than myself, but Blake, I was barely 40 when I met him. So he was like 19, you know, and so all hell broke loose in this little tiny rural Northwestern New Jersey community. And his mother had nothing to do, traditional housewife, sat at home all day and just would get on the phone and tell her friends all these stories about me. And they were so much more interesting than the truth. We just loved each other. We lived together. It was a kind of a go to the gym, have pizza, go to the movies. I mean, it was a rather uneventful life. But the stories of me being a witch and a prostitute and seances and, a detriment to the community. And enormous sexual behavior. They had me sleeping with everyone all the time. And all the money I'd made in New York, they made it like, you know, either men gave it to me for sexual favors or, I don't know. In small communities, it seems that if you want to erode somebody's credibility, what you do is create these fantastical stories about them. And in a world where there's not much going on, it's so much more enticing to listen to and kind of want to believe because
just gossip.
I realized it alleviates the burden from us having to achieve. If we imagine that they did something or they cut the line, or they did something unethical to get there. So like, so what I used to hear is, I'm a good person. We don't do that. So success to people that don't want to work hard is oftentimes, they're gonna, you know what I mean? That
Right.
negative.
So you got started really by writing about your own personal relationships and learning from, sounds like the age gap difference between you and your first partner. What were some of the insights and things that you learned from that relationship or that age gap?
I learned, one, I'm not the only one. I went through just torment for 7 years. There was a petition to have me removed from the community because I was a detriment. They had 100 signatures. Now, I don't know whether those were 100 people or people making up names, but I mean, this stuff is intense. It's like a witch hunt. And when it happens to you, and you've lived in the city and you've had a big life, it's hard to understand that in some places these things happen. But then when I wrote the book, I didn't write a thing about me. I didn't write about my experience, nor did I reveal the people in the community that were harassing me. There were no laws on the books to protect ageism or character defamation of this nature. I was so early. You're talking 1995 to 2000 in a rural community. What I discovered is I'm not the only one, and people really suffered, equally so in other communities. I also learned that in some places, different is bad. Different isn't different. Different is bad.
Right. Well, you stand out.
Yeah, and you're bad if you're different. I also learned that I'm unwilling to give up my choice if I love somebody for your comfort.
Yeah.
So I could have alleviated this situation and been adored by my community, because when I first moved out there, I was in Financial News Network, which is now CNBC, and the Star Ledger had written this whole thing about I moved to this community. It was like a big deal. This New York anchor woman moves to this little community, right?
Right.
And then within a couple of years, I'm the scourge of the community for a very different reason. But it's so interesting, because what one community may value, and in New York, where you've got the biggest fish in the world and the biggest pond, what you achieve is esteemed by your neighbors and your colleagues. I mean, they know the price that it takes for success.
Right.
When I placed myself in this little rural community just to get away from the crime in New York and take a break, what I didn't realize was that everything I'd achieved would be used against me. And I thought that was rather odd.
Because you had the attention and you had the public eye, and so you were an easy target for people to...
And that's bad. Working hard is bad. Making money is bad. Having a young boyfriend was bad.
Right.
And the funny thing is, were I a man, I would have had it going on. I was a great golfer. I had a Corvette and a BMW, one of the best homes in the entire development. I mean, it was gorgeous. 3,000 square feet for a single lady. That's not too bad.
Yeah, congratulations.
Right? And it was my dream home. Listen, it wasn't Greenwich, Connecticut. That's how we got away with it. I didn't have that kind of money, but I'd done very, very well in New York. And, had I been a guy with the hot young girl, and I'm a great golfer and fit and in shape, I would have been like the man. But instead, I was the whore. So, or the prostitute. And then I was a lesbian, evidently. I guess my roster was filled. I was a witch, a prostitute, and a lesbian. So when you go from being esteemed to suddenly hated, it's, I never thought I was so susceptible to public opinion, but I don't like being hated, especially for something I didn't do that's wrong.
So how do women get over these double standards for, it's like for a guy, he's a ladies' man, or he's, almost a compliment, but for women, it's a, it's a put down, or it's like, how do women overcome these double standards?
Like, first you got your head. You got to get over it in your own head, and you can self-talk and self-program yourself with positive thinking to eradicate that negative concept.
Mm-hmm.
Once you come out of your house, you can be dealing with the same thing. So you've got internal pressure and external pressure.
Right.
The only way to alleviate that over time is to have new generations that are more inclusive, that see things differently. And so I've been able to, I think part of the reason that I've had so much press, and especially millennial press and Gen Z press, and
Mm-hmm.
is that perhaps I think more like a younger generation. I'm not so stuck in how things have to be. And I think I see in a more inclusive manner how life can be. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's what works for you doesn't have to work for your neighbor, and that's okay, but that doesn't make what you want bad.
Right.
In anything.
Yeah. So I guess another question to lead off that is, as we're talking about this new generation where there seems to be less rules and barriers on relationships and even genders, is like, how do people navigate that when they don't want to be bound by rules? It's like there's almost no rules, and so it's even more difficult.
So the pendulum has swung from cookie cutter relationships that are, you mentioned before we started recording, the mid-century archetype of the stay-at-home mom, heterosexual couple, lots of repression. People had to live secret lives. People committed suicide. I mean, horrible, horrible criminal penalties for being yourself. Now everything's blown apart. That's the good news. It's also bad news. So I've been struggling for 20 years to try and create an infrastructure so it's a safe transition, because if you blow up a structure, you've got to have something safe in place to capture all the remnant people and all the stuff that's just coming down from the heavens in bits and pieces. So we are today at the opposite end. There are no rules. There are no manners. There's no protocol. There's bad behavior. There's ghosting and benching and whelming and window shopping and haunting and zombieing and catfishing and kitten fishing and I don't know what, like hundreds of other things that are going on, right?
Yeah.
And all these things are happening, and people are in situationships. They are having sex with somebody in what context they have no idea. And my greatest fear is that to offset this unbelievable internal trauma from merging in the most intimate way possible sexually. It is the most intimate act we can do with another human being. And then we want to, like, okay, cool, see you later. Yeah, that was fun.
Right. It's so casual now. It's just like, you don't even have to have a connection. You can just have sex with anyone almost.
Yeah, it's like a cup of coffee or bowling, or, let's go take a walk in the park. I mean, so what happens is this confuses the internal radar as to people have to be even more self-grounded in an environment that's all chaotic. So what people such as myself try to do is we're trying to create sanity and common sense and return civility to human interaction. Just because we don't know what we're doing and you don't know what you're doing doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing, and I need to express myself. So I'm a big fan of straightforward communication, especially when nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah. So does that start with the individual? Like, say we have a person that's single and who's on Tinder or on Bumble or Hinge, just meeting and dating people, but they don't know what they want. Are they ever going to get in a relationship, or are they just going to continue the infinite dating cycle? I guess how do we manage between people who are just having fun and don't want to be in a relationship, or the people who want the more traditional relationship? It seems like you have to kind of want that for it to be something that you can achieve. I guess I don't know what the question is in that.
No, I understand exactly what your question is, and you actually said it pretty well. So you've got a couple stages here. There are people who don't know what they want. They're young, or they've just come out of a long-term relationship, and they just want to explore, touch, taste, feel, eat everything on the buffet table. That, in a best possible environment, would be stated as, I'm looking to explore and just have fun. Ended a long-term relationship, if there's even room to write anymore.
Right. And I feel all these dating apps really play into that and let people explore that almost too much. It's like you can indulge in that more, and you kind of get lost in that environment.
You can stay there for years. This is why clarity of the filtration process, clarity. So when you're done doing your initial exploring and you think you know what you want, and again, knowing what we want is relegated upon having experienced what we don't want. So I might not know that I don't like this thing until I try it.
Right. Yeah.
I might have a sense, but I want to really check it out. So self-knowledge is part of the thing that we gain when we're dating. It's not about the heartache. It's not about the he, she did me wrong, they did me wrong. It's about, what did I learn and what do I know about myself? So that's step number one that's going to guide you. And then number two, that's really important, is to try and communicate that in every venue where you have an opportunity to. So I tell people on an online profile, say, relationship oriented or looking for a relationship. If you want marriage, say, I want marriage. Don't feel old-fashioned. It's boring. Nobody will want me. I'll look desperate. No. If that's what you want, because I know many women.
Yeah.
So most of my friends are Gen X, okay, and they are in their late 40s, early 50s now. Never had a child. Wanted marriage, but they were the generation that came through and like, wow, now we can work. Yay! We're free to work. Okay, and then they're working. They're dating, sex, dating, working. Something's kind of working, then it doesn't. And then guys and men and women and whatever else is happening, and they're with people, and then suddenly one day they realize, oh my God, I'm 48, I'm in perimenopause, I never had a child. I don't think it's going to happen. Because they hit the market at a time that everything was in flux. And because they were the transitional generation, they just kind of went with it. And they didn't start to think about how they want to play this thing out. They always assumed it was going to happen because historically it had happened for the generations before them. They didn't know they would get caught in the crossfire where suddenly, no, you don't have a committed relationship. You lived with Sam for 1.5 years. Then you discovered he was a narcissist. And then you dated Ben. Then you dated Julie. Now you're back with Ben, but he's still in love with his ex. And no, now you're single.
So do these people don't know what they want, or as they get older, their priorities change or shift?
They start to learn very quickly what they do want when they can't get it.
Okay, yeah. Always, the grass is always greener.
Well, when it's passed you by and you realize you can't have it. Like, I know a lot of women right now, not so much men, because men are always in it for the physicality of the dating aspect. But I know a lot of women that have taken a time out. They're like, I don't think I can find a man that's agreeable. Men don't know how to date anymore. They don't know how to treat me like a lady. They don't even know how to call me back. If it's just going to be sex, then let's have it just be sex. And I think I'm going to be single. It's less of a headache. And again, this is this generation.
Right.
So millennials kind of got put through the grinder. And when they destroyed all of the set markers, which is cool. We needed to have that done. I'm a huge fan of that. But again, they didn't have an a la carte. If I don't have this, I want to create this. They didn't know what they can create. They let the other person tell them, and the other person didn't know. So it's like we're all walking through the desert and somebody goes, oh, I'm going to go that way. And somebody's like, oh, I'm going to go this way. I don't know. I'm going to stay here. I don't know what I want. I'm going to go. Nobody knows where they're going. So you have to decide on your own whatever generation, you've got to know who you are and what you want and try and state that clearly for any chance of it happening.
Right. And so I guess to that, they tore down all the roles, but then you're left with just pieces and parts. And so what would you say is the true foundation of a good relationship, whether it be between, a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or whatever they want to call it, but a relationship is a relationship, correct? Is like,
correct.
What would be the good foundation to know that you're in a good relationship?
Well, I do kind of a love a la carte. I like to create, if we don't have a design, let's get creative, right? We've got a very creative generation here, a couple of them. And if you want to break rules, make your own, for God's sake. I mean, so I like agreements. You don't have to be in a structure, but you need to have an agreement. We need to have language and an agreement as to how we participate with each other. What's okay, what isn't okay. Are we monogamous? Are we not? Are we both okay with that? What happens if? There have to be, if you're not going to walk into the cardboard cutout where we know the rules and we know the rules, then you better start coming to an agreement and learn how to negotiate for what you want. Now, you do it all day long in business. You just keep forgetting that relationship. Now you don't have a structure. You've got to create your own. That's the exciting thing about it. It's also frustrating because sometimes you get with people and they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this. They're defaulting to something they don't want because they know it. And then they give up, and then they don't want to do anything. They don't want to make any decisions. But I have a lot of friends that have recently gotten married in like almost turning 50. It took them a while. And the one thing about going through this for a while, eventually you really do know what you want. You really do.
What are some of these common agreements that are in a great relationship?
Fidelity is one. How do we want to structure this relationship is two. What are we comfortable calling each other? How involved with each other's families and circle of friends do we want to be? How do we envision spending time together? Are we looking to date? Are we looking to live together? Are we looking to possibly get married? If we get married, are we interested in having children, adopting children, no children? What is the unifying factor in this relationship that excites us? What is that third principle? Do you travel? Are we a power couple? Do we support each other's, startup careers? I mean, how do we function? Do we enter a business together? How do we work together? And why are we together? What's the end goal of us being together? Because in the old days, the end goal was marriage and children. That was it. And so what's our end goal today? What if that's not our goal? What if that might be our goal, but right now we have a temporary goal? What's our goal right now? So these are conversations that you can't assume that somebody understands what you want. None of us are telepathic. Men especially are not telepathic.
Yeah, I'll vouch for that.
We females think that the moment you love us, you should understand us. That like I shouldn't have to tell you that. You should know. Well, no, you don't know, or you wouldn't have done that or not done that. So we need to be extremely clear. So communication is something that I think, I see a lot of people very comfortable to communicate how they're feeling, like, oh, I'm feeling stressed, or this is a boundary issue for me, or I need space, or I'm not comfortable with that. Well, that's good. We know your emotional temperature, but what are we doing here? What would you like? Be creative.
Yeah, what are some of those ways to enhance communication and to really get on the same page?
Use words that we understand. You can't be that vague. So I have these 3 videos. They're really simple. I did them in my kitchen when my refrigerator was running, kind of like recharging it. I didn't know how to cut the hum at the time, but it's so good. I did it a number of years ago. Step 1, step 2, and step 3. And step 1 is, what do you want? Give it words. I want a boyfriend. I want a girlfriend. I want a partner. I want a soulmate. I want a live-in lover. I want a +1. I want a friend with benefits, whatever. Find a word that most people would understand. Then you need a qualifying sentence that explains how that is or isn't the generic understanding. For example, a girl told me, I want a boyfriend. I want a lover. But I want him to be, I only want to see him on the weekends. And I want it to be like this and this. And she had these little things that alter how we view what that word boyfriend means. So I said, well, you're going to have to explain that. Okay. Another girl used the word lover. She said, Susan, I want a lover. I know her. So I said, do you want a guy that just comes over in the middle of the night, or do you want a guy that you can take out in public and introduce him? So of course she wanted the former. The latter. She wanted the last one. That's right. So I think then number 2 is, why do you want what you want?
Yeah.
What are you hoping this relationship's going to get you? What is the end goal in this? Are you wanting a relationship because you want a sense of family, a sense of closeness, a sense of belonging? You want great sex, you want excitement. Why are you in this thing? Right?
Right. Yeah. So
Because sometimes if we ask that, we'll look at the person we've chosen and go, doesn't match.
Yeah,
Right?
I was just gonna say, yeah, your what may be a lot different from your why.
And then the third thing that nobody ever talks about that always trips us up is, how do you want this relationship to look, function, and feel in the real world? When I say, let's be in a relationship, okay, you and I, okay, we're going to be dating. You've got your idea of what that means, and I've got my idea. We are using words that we should understand what they mean, but nowadays we don't understand what they mean.
Right.
So,
everyone has a different meaning to the same word, and so it causes a lot of confusion or frustration between couples.
Exactly. So maybe in your mind, partnership means I see you on the weekends. We get together Friday night all the way through Sunday night, and maybe I take you out once during the week. Maybe that's what it means to you. Maybe to your partner, it means I need 3 dates during the week. I need text messages throughout the day. I need all day Sunday, because Sunday is the most important day to me. But it just means different. Partnership is just to see you briefly once a week.
So really clarifying these terms that you say, and to make sure that they understand not only the word, but the definition behind the word.
And then how this relationship's going to function. Like because think of how many times somebody gets upset because they're either not invited to someplace, or they don't want to go someplace, or one partner wants more time to see them than the other wants to give them. This is where new relationships that could work oftentimes hit these impediments, and they just don't go further because people haven't really thought it out. There's what I want to create, but how I envision it, which just using the word may not be the same for us, why I'm there, and then how I actually, my ideal of how I'd like to be with you, and how I'd like to spend time or not, how much, how little, under what, what are the rules? Do I have to go to your third cousin's engagement party? Oh, is that going to be a deal breaker for me? Am I going to be shown off like, like, do I have to go to sporting events? Do I have to cook for all these hungry guys because it's some kind of a sporting event, and they're all going to be they're going to be drunk in my living room, and I want to get up in the morning and go to work. So there's a lot to think about nowadays.
Right. And to change the topic a little bit, how important is it that you and your partner have the same religious beliefs going into a relationship? If they differ from each other, is that going to cause issues down the road, or is there ways to make that work? What have you seen in your experience?
You know, for the most part, the people that love each other find a way to get around these things. They love each other enough that despite differences, they work it out. Like there are a lot of people of the Jewish faith that when they find a female, she's got to convert. And that's more for their family and for their community.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, most gals that are Gentile that are dating a Jewish guy, if they want kids, this is going to be a family pressure. Now, again,
Mm-hmm.
that's his decision too. Do you really feel that way? Do you really need that? Or are you just caving into your mother and your grandfather and your uncle and everybody else? I
Mm-hmm.
knew a girl who was dating a guy, and he was an heir to a fortune of a drugstore and food chain.
Mm-hmm.
Just so mad. She said, he won't marry me because I won't give up my religion. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Would you be willing to give up billions for him? Oh, let's just be honest, because I
Right.
know how much you love money.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you give up your money for him? Because the grandfather would disinherit him if he didn't bring back a Jewish girl. Or if one person is Muslim and wants you to convert to something that is oppressive to you, that's a deal breaker, because now in this way, if the lifestyle that they demand you enter
Mm-hmm.
is opposing your sense of freedom and who you can be, it's not a minor adjustment, like it's a fundamental adjustment as to how you live your life. If you
Mm-hmm.
have to be covered up and you're not that kind of girl, you got to rethink that relationship. But
Right.
both people have to come to the table and figure out how severe are these differences, and what is the price that we are willing to pay in our personal freedom. Because you've got couples that have differing opinions politically. Nowadays, that's
Mm-hmm.
become an equally hot topic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to bring that up as well. Whether you're a Democrat or a Trump supporter, or it's almost you're villainizing the other side, and you won't even be associated with them. And so it's yeah, it's a very similar conversation.
Um, so very few people are so passionate about what they think and believe that it can override their love for somebody. Normally, we can find all sorts of exceptions for the person we love. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we would never tolerate in other people, but we will tolerate in them. And most of the couples I know have a similar political outlook, because that is part of the similar values that they share, and that they're spiritual or religious, or we're not religious at all and couldn't care less, that is more
Mm-hmm.
similar. Um, Remember, couples tend to be uh, merging into one as time moves on. So we have to really carefully assess what is important to us and what isn't, and
Mm-hmm.
how much of a deal breaker that is. Again, if the if if one person is fundamentally very, very, like, I have a friend who is, you're not going to believe this, a scientist,
Uh-huh.
devout Roman Catholic, devout,
Oh, wow.
devout, and says, I got no problem with
Mm-hmm.
somebody with different language, same idea. I'm like, okay, but her husband goes to church with her, goes to mass, right? So
Yeah.
um, she would have to be, a person like this would have to be with somebody who allows her belief and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
get in the way of that. And if they participate, that's better. But if they don't, that's okay. So I think fundamentally it's more about, how does this relationship impact our ability to express and be ourselves within the relationship? Are we stifled every time we say, I love Trump and I'm making this we're going to make it a better world? Are they stifled every time they talk about some spiritual principle that their mate's going to put them down and tell them they're stupid and there's no such
Mm-hmm.
thing? See, so
Right.
that's what becomes a deal breaker.
Yeah. So you talked about, as time goes on, couples merge into one. Could you go into a little more detail on what you mean
Well,
by merging?
we, from repeated exposure to living with the same person, you've learned each other's habits. I mean, My dog knows the routine when we get up in the morning. I don't have to tell her because she doesn't understand English, but she learns it through repetition. And the same is true with our partners. We learn their hot buttons. We start to merge into how do I explain this? We start to have dominant sides of our personality emerge to interact with our mate. So that creates kind of a model of who we are to each other. We might be persuaded over a period of time to be more open to a concept that we might not have accepted in the past through continual exposure to our mates. If I have a partner that loves country western music, and I don't, I mean, loves it, I hear it, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, through exposure, I might grow to like some of it, okay?
Right.
So you find your middle ground, and couples always do.
And I've heard a lot about, like, once you're single, you think a lot about yourself, and then once you're in a relationship, you start thinking about the other person and the relationship. So you actually start giving up some of yourself or some of your time to what's going to grow the relationship or the family. And so that becomes the new priority, is how to better the family than it is to how to better myself. You're putting the family or the other person above yourself. And so that might not be another way to say it's merged, because now you're no longer a single, you're now a family or a unit or something like that.
Well, that's a good point. Your goals shift and your role can shift in partnership. When you have others to think about, it's part of the package, and you'll feel a different responsibility. I think there have been a lot of fairly selfish, self-oriented people that have suddenly found themselves with a child, expected or unexpected, and sobered up right away. And I don't mean like they're drunk, but I mean, it was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a parent. I got to get this together. I got to, because now you realize you've taken on the responsibility for something else, and it's crucial that you do it properly. And this isn't like you just, how do I explain it? It isn't like you give up yourself, but yeah. I told you somebody's ringing the doorbell. There's nothing I can do about that. I don't know what's going on. This is what happens when you live out here in a place like this. So what happens is that you'll start thinking about.
Do you need to get it? Do you need to get the door?
I don't know. If they go away, I won't. If they do it again, then they can just whatever.
Okay.
I've got a contract sitting out there for a roofer. So these flat houses that I have, so I have a home here in the Southwest. I live in New York City, and they have the flat roofs, and it's really pretty. It's got the Vega beams and all that, and it's the territorial style. Nightmare to, oh my God, they're so expensive to up, because the rain just sits there, and you can get leaks. Oh my God, it's so expensive. So I've got a contract waiting for a roofer. It's about $1,000 every year for maintenance or whatever. Oh, it's just so, and if you let it go, anyway. So let's say, okay, so about how your priority shift.
You don't have to give up yourself and the priority shift.
Sometimes it is in your own best interest. So I've had long-term live-in relationships. Now, for example, if I'm having a great day, my partner comes home depressed, sad. Something's happened to his brother. Oh my God. And then we have to be sad all night. That messes up my day. I was really happy. Now we can't be happy. I can't jostle you out of it. You're in a mood. Your energy has affected my entire life. So what happens in some ways is that we start to manage the world around us by being aware of how to keep our partner happy, calm, even healed, so that we can be happy. Do you understand what I'm saying? You start doing relationship management skills, like, okay, this is going to irritate him. I'm going to make sure that the food is ready, whatever. And I don't mean to live in fear and that somebody's narcissistic, but there's certain things that you learn about your mate. Okay, I know she's going to be 15 minutes late, so I'm going to tell her that we're due at 6:30 because I know we're really due at 7. This way I'm not going to stress. I'm going to be, okay, baby, I understand. It's okay. Yeah, you look great. Okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you learn to manage your mate so you can have a better experience.
Right. I've always heard happy wife, happy life.
That's right. That's right. True.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I guess as you're getting into a relationship, and I mean, if we're still talking about the dating, it's like, how do you know which one's the right one? Or if you have a fear of settling or fear of commitment, how do you really commit and to know that you're in the right relationship?
You're always going to have fears, even people that walk down the aisle. There are some people who walk down the aisle and they're not nervous,
Mm-hmm.
but that's really rare. So even your friends that know they're with the right person, making a commitment is a scary thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
scary. It's one thing to want to be there. It's another thing to acknowledge to everybody you're going to be there. Um, Partner selection, we learn what good is over time. Sometimes we're lucky and we just get the right one right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Most people I know start to learn what is correct from having a little experience in what they don't want. I have a client in China. These people have VPNs, right?
Right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
right. So I mean, you can't believe it. Anyway, um, the first partners that she had were so abusive that when she's experiencing engulfment, control, manipulation, emotional manipulation, and a rushed pace from the current boyfriend and histrionics, she thinks this is good. And I say, good for you. Nobody's coming after you with a knife. This is improvement. However, this is another level. So I can tell you a story that a gal told me in the laundry room of my apartment. Um, so I was always asking questions long before I was in this profession. I love asking because one person speaks for thousands. I know that. I don't have time to
Mm-hmm.
interview the world. And so I've always asked. And so this gal somehow came up, we were folding her laundry and something about she's getting engaged. I don't know why. I just asked her, Blake, so like, how did you know? And she
Yeah.
said, it was so easy. It was so easy. When
Yeah.
I think of how hard I worked to make other relationships work and twisting and contorting and bending myself. And this one was just easy.
Yeah. Easy. Mm-hmm.
So then, and you want to be there. Not easy and you couldn't care less, but easy and you like being there.
Right. Easy and everything's going right and
Yeah,
growing and
yeah,
enhancing, and it's just
yeah.
like everything's just natural and flowing.
Right. This is what we're looking for. People talk about the connection, the connection. So that's the buzzword from all the clients I hear. Oh, but God, the connection. Oh, the connection. Oh my God, the connection. So when did you last talk to him? Well, it was 2017, but you know he's been busy. Okay, all right. Connection, connection. So we can create a connection with most anyone, but sustained connection, this sense of ease.
Mm-hmm.
Another sign that's really good is conflict resolution. When you come to a bump in the road, are you free to express yourself? Are you free to express your concerns? Is your partner free? Is it worked out in a way that feels equitable? Do you feel that you're always compromising to keep peace? I had done that in most of my life. That was the model I grew up with in my home, watching,
Mm-hmm.
watching my family dynamics. You just keep giving up parts of yourself to appease the other person to keep
Right.
everyone functional.
Like
And
pleaser, a people pleaser, or a,
yeah, just because you've got one partner that's completely out of control with their own life. So the other partner tends to try and manage it. And
mm-hmm.
that's a full-time job. And as I was explaining to this gal, I said, right now you're calling it love because he's so much nicer to you. But needing you is not love. Controlling you is not love. Engulfing you, being there every night is pissing on the bush so nobody else can get near you. That's monitoring you. That's not that they love you. And I sincerely worry that no matter what you give this person, it's never enough. So we were watching the markers, and I would call it out each step of the way. Now that he has gotten you into a relationship which he pushed you to be in, is that enough? We're going to find out, because I have my suspicions that it's never enough. And then, don't you know, then we got the next, then the next, then the next. And I said, so I hope for the best, but I see what it is. But this is how we learn. Eventually you get to the point where you're like, oh my God, I can't keep working at this. I just can't. It's too much work to make it work.
So you were talking about love there for a little bit, and how that wasn't love. So what is love? How do you know you're in love? Or how would you explain it when you see a couple that's in love compared to a couple that may just be attracted to each other, or a couple that's lusting after each other, right? How is love different from those other things?
Love happens over time and a lot of storms and a lot of challenges. Love is basically the fact that every time you could have walked away, you chose not to. You had the ability. It's not like you're trapped and you're terrified to leave. It's very different. You could have just said, this is enough. And you go back in one more time. But what it means is we come to a separation, but we find each other, like our hands break apart, but then we find each other's hand in the crowd or in the desert where we can't see each other. And we decide to hold hands and continue the journey a little bit longer. And then hands break apart again, but we have the desire and willingness to go back. And this love is something that you see over time. And one of the hallmarks of love is consistency. Your partner, you will hurt your partner, and your partner will hurt you. Sometimes they are grave wounds and things that are very hard to get over. But love is the willingness to stay at it, and not from an obsessive, insecure, sick, I need you, I'm desperate mentality, but from an active choice that out of everyone in the world, I choose you, because overall, there's more positive going on here than negative, and you're my favorite person in the world.
Wow, that's amazing. So a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up here. But what do you think, as religion's declining in today's world, what do you think is the purpose of marriage? Is that declining too? Is there a reason why people get married, non-religious reasons? Just what are your thoughts on marriage?
So this one's tricky for me. Philosophically, I think that the idea of making a public proclamation keeps you accountable. And this grand accountability, I'm fine if the ceremony is spiritual in nature. If it's with your friends, I really get irritated when the government and all the rulings and the laws get involved. But I understand that was because we are looking for a safe haven for a family. We don't want a deadbeat dad. We don't want a mother that abandons her kids. We want to tie you down with responsibilities. I never wanted marriage because I didn't want children. And I also didn't want to beg a partner to let me leave them. And I didn't want to pay numerous entities to get out. I wanted to be there because I wanted to be there. Now, this was not something I could easily say in my time period. So understand that all of you who love marriage, I'm not against the concept. There are people that want to be married. They want that position. My fear is that there are many people older in life. If you're starting a family, just do the traditional. I mean, be safe, play safe, right? Just do do the right thing, give it a structure, do it. It's perfect. Okay. But if you are older and you've been divorced, why are you marrying again? You're in your 50s. What? I mean, you want to upset your kids because they don't know if the new wife that's 20 years younger is going to get all their money? I mean, why are you doing this? Now, I know older women who have been married numerous times, and they'll say, oh, I can't, they don't want to be degraded, like downgraded with the word girlfriend when they've had the title wife. Well, that's just ego. Get over it. What is the love any less because he's your boyfriend or your partner? We can find better words for this, but in an entanglement like that, I don't see any reason for senior or mature people that have already had their kids to go and do it again, unless you are like, this is the one, the other was my practice round. I want to be with this person the rest of my life, and I want the whole world to know it. But I think there are pluses and minuses financially, emotionally, and psychologically to being married as opposed to living together. But this is again where the couple and the individual has to decide, why do I want it? What do I want it for? What am I hoping it will achieve? I had worked with a client a while back. I work with men and women, okay? But this happens to be a female. She had everything she wanted in a guy. He'd been burnt in divorce, lost his fortune, just was recovering from the rubble and getting his money back. And she demanded that they be married. Now, here's the other thing. She was disabled. So she was already a burden to him that he was fulfilling. It's not like she was going to get anything more. And she loved him, but she had severe, it's not like she had a selection is what I'm saying. Like she had this great guy. I wanted to say, you don't have a replacement. It's like, you've got this unique problem and you want to get rid of this guy just because you want to be married. She goes, no, that's what I want. And I said, is it spiritual? She said, no. I mean, is it like against your religion? I don't get it. What, you've got this guy and you're going to boot him to the curb because he doesn't want to marry you, because she goes, I want a real relationship. And I'm like, okay, I can't, this, I have to serve my client. This is her idea of a real relationship is only marriage.
Right. What do you do in that situation? It's like you tell her to, keep her standards high and then you'll get what you want, or you say you got a great guy right in front of you. And
I told her my opinion. I said, my opinion is you have a wonderful guy who loves you and supports you, and for reasons that are valid. He's really been burnt by marriage, but he is fulfilling every aspect of marriage in his responsibility toward you, emotionally, sexually, financially, being there as your partner. You've got everything you would get with the exception of the title. Your construct as to you only think that word is valid. That construct is you're getting everything. I don't know what to say. It's like you take a Tesla, you love the name Tesla, right? You have the same car and you call it woo-woo. No, I don't want a woo-woo. I want a Tesla, because you want what Tesla means. But woo-woo is the same thing. Same car. They just put another name on the backside of it. And you don't want that.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Right. So I guess this leads, this might be the final question, but how do you know when your model is not being met for a partner, and then it's, even though they may be a great person, but how do you know it's time to leave or things aren't changing, like when to break up or end a marriage?
This is tricky. This is a big one. When to stay versus when to go, right?
Right.
This is huge. If you boil down the number one reason people call any coach like myself, they've got one dominant question. Should I stay or should I leave? Is this thing worth it? Is there hope? I have feelings for someone that are not reciprocated in the way I want. Can you help me make it better, or do I have to leave? And if I have to leave, can you help me do that? So this is always the question. So this is a bit of gambling. And it has to do with your tolerance for risk given your current state of affairs. For example, I might gamble 60-75% and throw the dice back on the table because I'm pretty sure I can get 80 or 85. So I
Right.
might trade out a relationship because I feel at that moment in time that I have the ability to do better.
Right. So you're saying your relationship might be a 5 or 6 out of 10, but you want to go out and see if you can get that 8, 9, 10 perfect relationship.
Well, there's what do you want and what are you capable of getting in the real world? And that this is an important disclaimer because I've done a number of videos on why people settle. I'm not against settling when you have limited options. There are people that, Blake, they're not going to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They have physical, mental, emotional, psychological, they've got baggage, they've got stuff that for whatever reason, they're not the top of the I want this list. They just aren't. And if you find somebody suitable, that may be one of your few opportunities. And if they're good to you, quit wanting, the 10 Hawaiian tropic girl or if
Mm-hmm.
you're really lucky, she's a 6 and she loves you. 6 may be your max. You got to get real about that.
Right.
But so, I've had people in my life that are friends that have looked and been on the market, and they wanted something they could not achieve. They just didn't have the chips, physically, emotionally, whatever. They didn't have the chips, and they got something. Was it the best? No, but you know what? It was suitable and it was available. I'm never saying settle. That's one story as to why people take what they can get. They get the best of what they can get. Now, the second part of this question is, we've got options. I'm in a relationship. It's not bad, but it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do better? Now, the question becomes, I believe we have an internal accountant that's got the most perfect balancing system at all times. This is my terminology for it. It's like an internal computer.
Right.
When things start to rack up that your time is less and less enjoyable, that stuff is going into your computer. You might be a little afraid to pull the trigger, but it's adding up. And the negatives are starting to go down and get more heavy than the positives. There's always a tipping point that makes it easier. Or life throws somebody in your way at a conference you went to and you lock eyes with somebody and you're like, oh my God, this is the person. I'm really getting rid of Sheila. I never left. I've been there for 2 years. I mean, I knew I wanted out, so sometimes life intercedes and we get a break. But knowing when to fold and hold is a tricky question. It involves not just do we want more, it involves can we get more? And where are we at today and what's a smart choice? Women will oftentimes suck it up for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Got a friend with her husband, 30 years, how she managed, and he loves her. I know that, but he's impossible. I get angina just walking in the house because he's going to start poking at me. And he's a loving, devoted father but he has a way of playing like Howard Stern where he just wants to poke and poke and poke and poke till he finds that spot and then he wants to poke and poke. There's no rest. There's like, oh my God, I'm going to war. I just wanted a cup of tea. Now I'm going to war. So this woman survived this for all these years for her sons. That's it. Now she's out.
Yeah, that's a difficult situation for sure.
So circumstance determines a lot of when we hold and when we fold.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great place to end, I think. Thank you for all your time and your authenticity and candidness. That I got a lot out of it. And so I know everyone who's listening will too. If people want to know more about you or get your services, if they have a relationship and need help, where can they find you at online?
Oh, yeah, all my information's at susanwinter.net. I've got a big YouTube channel that's doing pretty well, and I've only been recording since really 2016, so it's doing very, very well. So that's Susan Winter. And if you put Susan Winter into Google search, I should be the first thing that pops up. I've got tons and tons of content. I work by the minute, by the hour, or by the day. So I give everybody options on if they need consultation, but I promise you, I've probably already written the article or done the interview that's got your answer. So you can get it for free as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you so much, Blake. Great show. Thank you.